And now let me just, like I said, I get access to lots of CEOs, and so I asked Doug Oberhelman at Caterpillar. I have huge respect for Caterpillar. I have huge respect for Doug. And I was really interested in what they were doing in leadership development. And because I'm an old auditor, I have lots of questions. I ask gazillions of questions, and we run out of time sometimes. And so I got to my favorite question, and we didn't have any more time. And so Doug said, Jim, I'm interested in sharing with you my perspective on that question. I'll send you a note. And so this is how Doug responded to my question. What are the conditions that need to be in place in order for a team to be well led when his people go back for the holidays? What he wants the knowledge workers at Caterpillar to be able to express to their parents. And I just want to emphasize this bullet. Look at that bullet and then think about your organization. A well-led organization invests in their development and in the development of their team. And what I find fascinating about that is, if I were to ask you, how much of Doug Oberhelman, think CEO of Caterpillar, think of the scale of that enterprise, think of the massive change that they've had to drive through that organization, what percentage of Doug Oberhelman's time do you think he spends on that bullet? Anybody have a guess for me? How much? 95. Somebody thinks almost all of his time. Other ideas? I will tell you, when I was the CEO of Deloitte, I didn't feel that I was spending all of my time on developing others, but I think it might be a perspective. The way that Doug answers that question is 1/2 of his time. He spends 1/2 of his time on his development and the development of his team. And when he goals his direct reports, he wants them to spend 1/2 of their time developing others. And when you move down through the Caterpillar organization chart, each time you come down a layer, you get to reduce the portion of the time that is spent developing others by 10 points. So the second row, 40%. The third row of the chart, 30%. Supervisors, 20%. Now, I heard that said of A.G. Lafley, that A.G. Lafley spent 1/3 of his time on leadership development. And being a CEO, I thought, oh boy, I want to be good. I thought I was good, but I don't think I spend 1/3 of my time developing others. So we had at our US board, we had the talent leader from Procter & Gamble come. We were doing a development session. And so who do you think I sat by at dinner? And as an auditor, I had lots of questions about AG's 1/3 of his time on leadership development, because AG has his top 236 people at Procter & Gamble. He does the succession planning for those 236. He does each year a 3-day intensive leadership development event for them. 3 days does not make 1/3 of the time. And so what the HR leader said back to me, I said, does AG really spend 1/3 of his time developing others? And the way that he then responded to it is he said, Jim, you have to realize that every time AG interacts with a senior leader at Procter & Gamble, he thinks he's in a leadership development session. So if you're an SBU leader at Procter & Gamble and you're in for a business plan review, you're going to have a good go at it with AG. And in AG's mind, he's building your capability. And when you come in to review your development plans for your high potentials in your business unit, AG thinks he's in a leadership development session with you as he's asking you questions on what you're doing to build the capabilities of the top talent. One of the most limiting factors of growth of any large-scale enterprise is the ability to build the leadership core that's needed to actually drive the organization and take advantage of all the leadership opportunities that are there. But a well-led organization, it has the clarity, for sure. It has the climate, but down on capability, a well-led organization is ready to invest in building that capability. So when something lands on your desk and it came from one of the millennials in your team, and you look at this and say, I can't believe what they're giving me. When I was growing up here, we didn't ever hand things in, move them up the chain in this kind of condition. What's wrong with these millennials? Instead of that thought, have a huge part of my responsibility as a leader is to build capability. This wasn't done as well as it could have been done had I done it. But I'm now going to help the person who prepared this and brought this forward, and I'm going to help them so that next time this comes, it's going to be better. And then the third time that it comes, it's even going to be better. And when we actually get to the fourth closing, this is going to be done as well as it would be done if I'd done it. And you're building the capability of your team. You're building that leadership core. You're getting them ready to be deployed out to other business units. You're building that future leaders. And I think you're making a huge contribution. Okay, we're going to call that end of Leadership 101. And now what I want to do is move on to Leadership 201, if we can. I think this is a timeless leadership challenge. How do you galvanize a large group of diverse individuals to work together effectively to accomplish a common goal? It's been with us forever. That's why I brand it timeless. If that's a timeless leadership challenge, and we all know we could walk across the campus here to the library, and I don't think we have to walk very far, but we could go to the library and we would find a gazillion books on leadership written by some really smart people. So if this is a timeless challenge, and if there's tons of writing on leadership today, what on earth was I doing spending millions of dollars of my partner's money to conduct some research on leadership? What's wrong with me? Don't I know how to spend my partner's money? Am I just simply taking the privilege of position and having my little pet project that I was undertaking? And what I believed, because I feel passionate about being a steward of my partner's money, I actually think the world that we're competing in today is different than the world that might have existed when all those books were written. And I think that it is more than changed. I think it is shifted. And I don't care what data point you want to use for your before and after measurement, but I think the word shift better describes what's occurred. And you're going to hear from our speaker next is going to talk about mobility and how mobility has actually shifted the way that work is occurring. And we could easily have mobility up here, and maybe that's a part of what that whole notion of the second bullet on technology, if you just simply blow that out. But I think globalization has changed dramatically. I personally believe that we've moved from globalization 1.0. We all want to have a presence in those high growth emerging markets because they're growing at rates superior to global GDP. So we think we're a global company. We've got a branch in India. We have a joint venture in China, and we have a subsidiary in Brazil. We're a global company. We're participating, in my view, in globalization 1.0. What I think is happening that is now shifted is if you look at the foreign direct investment flows, it isn't just foreign direct investment into emerging markets now. There's significant foreign direct investment out of those emerging markets. So when Geely Automotive in China acquires Volvo, that has an impact on the automotive market in Europe for sure, and I think it's going to have an impact on the global automotive market. When Tata Motors of India acquires Jaguar and Land Rover in the UK from Ford, that's reshaping how that automotive market is going to play. And so as we then get ready to compete with companies headquartered in the emerging markets, but we're going to compete with them in our mature markets, I'm viewing that as globalization 2.0. I think it's a very, very significant shift. And then I think that push versus pull world, that second bullet, is a full-on big deal. If, as the leader of Deloitte, I thought I could communicate with my people by just simply pushing information to them and that they would actually rely on the information that got pushed to them to form their views of how they felt about Deloitte or what needed to be done, that was a great world to be a leader in because you're in control of the message when you can actually push and your people are going to rely on the information you push their direction to form their view. But what happens today? How many of us actually rely on information pushed to us to form our views? Because I think what we're all doing is we're filtering and we're pulling data from sources we rely on. We might be pulling from our peers through social media. We might be pulling from a wide variety of news sources, but there's no longer 3 editors controlling the news program of the 3 major networks, sitting on Park Avenue in New York, deciding what they're going to push to us, and that we're going to then rely on what gets pushed to us to form our view. Because today we pull. Leading in a pull world is a very different challenge. And then finally, the demographics of the workforce, just the views of the generational shift that's occurred in terms of who the working age adults are, full-on big deal. So I believed it was time then I gave myself permission to let's take a fresh look at leadership. And that's what we've undertaken. Here's an effort at a 2-minute summary of a 300-page book. I'll save you a lot of time here.
What is leadership? Many say it is all about people. They say a leader's job is to develop people's sense of belonging to their group, so they have a strong shared identity. Others say leadership is all about productivity. They think a leader's job is to get people to have a common interpretation of how they are going to work together. Some others say leadership is all about purpose. They feel a leader's job is to drive people's commitment to the goals of the organization. In other words, high directional intensity. We believe that real leadership involves all three of these things. We call it working as one, and we think it is all about getting a cohesive group of people to work together productively towards a common purpose. As one. It's a short phrase, really. Only 5 letters, but those 5 letters are filled with meaning and inspiration. They make all the difference between a group of individuals and a unified team. Add these 5 letters and the entire meaning changes. Working versus working as one. Winning versus winning as one. Think of the possibilities. The sources of inspiration are endless. Believing as one, smarter as one, stronger as one. These 5 letters symbolize the translation of individual action into collective power. They describe how individuals can achieve amazing things together. Think about your own organization. Do your people think of themselves as one group? Are they truly committed to your goals and direction? Do they have the same ideas about how to work together? Do you actually measure how well your people work together? Did you even know that you could measure that? You can. We have developed the knowledge and tools that will truly enhance the ability of leaders, both our own as well as our clients, to get their people to work as one in their organizations. As one, individual action, collective power.
I think there is some power in that very simple phrase, and I'm not objective about it, but I actually believe that we might have, in those 2 very short words, sort of captured the essence of the leadership challenge. And when we decided to go forward with our research, and then when we felt we had some findings that we wanted to articulate and share in a book, we felt that we could modify the word leadership with the word collective, and we could have a rich conversation. Many of the books that we could find across the library would be leadership books that are sort of attribute-driven. They're an articulation of a list of attributes attached to someone who was once identified or judged as a successful leader. And then there's this leap of faith that if we took on those attributes, we also would be successful leaders. What we're trying to do is modify the word leadership with collective, and we're trying to then define leadership from the perspective of the ability to obtain organizational behavior. And organizational behavior sounds complicated, but I think you have a rich conversation when you think about what do you need to do to have organizational behavior, because now you're going to talk about the leader, you're going to talk about the follower, you're going to talk about the colleagues in the organization, you're going to talk about the organization, its systems, its processes, its approach, what is it that you're doing to try to sustain that or drive that organizational behavior. And we tried to distill all of that language down to just those very simple 2 words, as one. And what I believe, and the hypothesis that we state in the book, is that the organization that is able to behave as one is going to have the winning edge as they are competing with others in that same industry. Because now you're going to take that individual action and you're going to create collective power. And I think you really truly can build the whole idea of competitive advantage around that concept. So we could define leadership, and some of us would say, what is a leader's job? And we would say it's all about creating a strong sense of belonging. It's that first bucket. A leader has to be able to create a sense of pride and a strong sense of belonging. And then others would say, no, Jim, leadership is all about getting agreement on what needs to be done and having the organization aligned and committed around executing a strategy. And that's what a leader is about. A leader's able to see the need for change, put in place a strategy, and get people aligned and committed to execute them. And then others would say, no, leadership is all about productivity, maximizing the throughput, improving the productivity of the enterprise. And so if you actually moved in that direction, then you would start to say what we need to do is really agree on how we're going to work together. And what we believe around that ambition of organizational behavior, the only way you're going to get organizational behavior is you have to put in place all three. Now let's talk about them one at a time.